Machine. I wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie, and I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, and if I lose the fight, I still rage against the I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine. It's plain and simple, dear. I'll still be here when you're gone. You gather souvenirs, but I will never be your pawn, your pawn, your pawn. My love was in it.
Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Welcome, everybody. Sorry about that, folks. It took me a second there. All right. Welcome, everybody. I hope everyone had as good of a weekend as possible. Quad Bennett, welcome. I am a diabetic now. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Folks, we got a lot to talk about as we continue to cover what's happening here in the Trump administration. All right, folks. Before we get started, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. You guys are what makes this channel go. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. If you want to continue supporting the channel, there are many different ways of doing so. If you're on the YouTube, keep liking the stream. I do see it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the support. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. A couple of you have done so. We're at 260 subscribers. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. If you're on, if you're on Twitch, keep hitting that follow button. It really helps us out. Spread the word, folks. Spread the word, okay? One of the best ways of supporting the channel is lending your eyeballs, okay? I appreciate it. Spread the word. And if you want to keep up with the channel, join the Discord. Subscribe to the Substack, folks. There's a recent article there. There's a new article that is probably going to come out soon. So subscribe to the Substack for that. It's completely free. And if you want to support the channel directly, hit that exclamation mark merch and the tip button to support the channel directly. Thank you guys for joining us here today as we continue to cover what's happening. I mean, like, at this point, it's just so many different things that have happened just in the weekend. But I guess since we're not going to be able to like keep track of literally everything, just by the nature of how things are, I think the most notable stuff that people need to be that people need to remember is that, number one, we have a unelected oligarch in the Treasury accessing very sensitive systems, giving incredibly young people access to very sensitive systems. We still to this day do not know what exactly transpired there. The details around what the quote Doge team is doing is very sparse. There's no oversight. There's no congressional authority. There's no consultation. Nothing. We also have the illegal firing of workers. We have illegal freezing of funds that are appropriated by Congress, circumventing Congress's power, and by extension, the Constitution. We've had January 6th insurrectionists being pardoned. So yeah, I mean, like, I think those are the main things that we need to focus on, because one of the strategies which Steve Bannon has talked about is this flooding the zone kind of stuff, and we're going to see more of that, and attempting to keep track of all of it is going to be borderline impossible. So I think it's best if you concentrate on the important stuff, right? The important stuff, which to me is this circumventing of Congress, this disregard of the Constitution, and now apparently attempting or signaling that they are going to also disregard any judicial decision. Which at that point, all bets are off. Because if there's no oversight in Congress, if they're ignoring judicial decisions, then at that point, like, it's it could go down a couple of different ways, and none of them are good. Bipedal Meatbag, welcome. An unelected immigrant oligarch. Correct. The richest man in the planet. Again, illegally shutting down programs that neither him nor the president have the power of doing. Notably, USAID. So all of this is pretty disturbing, but the main picture here is the circumventing of the Constitution via this this Doge team over here. So we're gonna attempt to keep the eye on the ball, yeah, at this point, like it's a crisis, folks. As far as like the situation goes, it's a constitutional crisis. Of a proportion that we have not seen. And I think that people need to understand the severity of it, especially with this Treasury stuff, especially with the fact that there's no oversight happening. People need to be calling their Congress representatives every day. Every day. People need to be writing to your Congress every day. Because this is going to be an all hands on deck kind of thing. One of the major things that are also kind of happening are these tariffs, which are going to make things more expensive. As if the issues, economically speaking, aren't enough, they're adding tariffs to this. The tariffs on Chinese goods, it seems to be in effect, and now China has set to do some retaliatory measures as well. Apparently, they're also trying to do tariffs on steel and aluminum. So that's going to make a lot of things more expensive for Americans. And once again, tariffs are something that we, the consumer, pay by way of the companies passing down that cost to us, because the tariff is initially paid by the company, and that gets factored into the cost that we pay.
Here's Kristi Noem with, I'm not sure I fully understand what she's talking about. She may not
dressed
know.
as a cowboy.
Yes, new outfit. She had the Border Patrol outfit on last week on Laura Ingraham.
Just as a reminder, folks, this is the person who shot her dog.
You can find her dressed as a nurse in a campaign ad.
No, she's doing, Kristi Noem's trying to do everybody in the Village people over the course of her first month in office.
Trump would love that.
Here she is on NBC News with Kristen Welker.
you know, Madam Secretary, economists
Oh,
all
my
across
God.
the board are warning that ultimately tariffs lead to higher prices.
Yeah, like just by nature, tariffs are inflationary. This is like basic common knowledge. Okay. Tariffs by default and by nature are inflationary. That's how they work. That's how they're supposed to work. Okay. The idea behind a tariff is that you make people pay more with the hopes that they buy American. Right? That's why you put tariffs on other countries, because you want to motivate people, incentivize people, I should say, to buy American. The problem is we don't have alternative supplies set up to deal with this, so it just ends up being everything gets more expensive for everyone.
For consumers, and that these tariffs in particular could see prices increase on food, electronics, and cars. The president himself.
Pause it. Now, we just talked about this. Why does tariffs increase the price of things? Because the tariff is essentially, no, not essential. It's literally a tax.
There's a driver from a small town in Georgia who walked away with $80,000
Oh, that's so
after the
cool,
car accident
dude.
last month.
I don't care.
If the thing comes across the border, you need to pay a 25% tax on it, and the consumer pays for that. So it raises prices. But it also is inflationary for every other product in this country that would compete with that.
Right.
So if Sam's selling tomatoes and tomatoes cost 25 cents more or 25% more coming in from Mexico, I could actually raise the price of my tomatoes by 20%, still be a discount, and that's what's going to happen. But Kristi Noem doesn't seem to understand this.
Would see prices increase on food, electronics, and cars. The president himself acknowledging this morning these tariffs could cause, quote, some pain. How is this move helping President Trump fulfill his campaign promise to lower prices?
Yeah, just to be clear, like, it's not, he never cared about lowering price. He doesn't care about the American people at all. Okay?
You know, you've seen the president take action already this week with Colombia, and you saw Colombia react in a very...
Okay, so right off the bat, this has already nothing to do with anything at all. Because she can't answer that question directly.
very positive way that was good for everyone involved. Canada, Mexico, other countries have the opportunity to do exactly the same. So we have a strong leader. He has laid down exactly what he is going to do and what the...
This is like literally like 1984 stuff, right? Like war is peace, right? Up is down. Freedom is slavery. Like, I literally don't understand. Like, this is completely like divorced from reality. This is all, just to be clear, like what she's saying is all meaningless dribble because it's all bullshit.
Consequences are, I encourage their leadership teams to get on board and to make sure that they're not pushing up prices. If prices go up, it's because of other people's reactions to America's laws. And that's what President Trump is doing. He is making sure that we're not picking and choosing winners and losers, that the law applies equally.
What? I mean, there is a world where I can imagine we have a top cabinet official who's asked this question, who is just there to be a lapdog for Donald Trump, and comes up with a comprehensible, and I would disagree with it, but arranges her words in such a way that they actually mean something. But he is raising the prices. He is imposing the tax.
Rip Cricket, indeed. Welcome, Moen.
What another country could do to react to it. I mean, if they did nothing, if they did absolutely nothing, the prices would rise by 25% of those goods coming in. Again, there's domestic inflationary pressure. The only thing that they could do in response that would also be problematic for the U.S. is to say, oh, well, we're no longer going to buy your goods, which would then be problematic for the producers of those goods here. The idea that she goes on to say that Donald Trump does not choose winners and losers, it's literally 180 degrees from and I have no problem with the idea of government picking winners and losers because it does that all the time. But putting a 25% tax on some products in a market and not others is literally the definition of picking winners and losers.
Yeah. His lap is big enough for all these lap dogs. True.
Just go back a little bit because it's just stunning that these people are in charge of anything. Like, I am nervous just at the idea that she may have put that hat on herself with her abilities, as she's explaining right now.
She may have been kicked by a horse.
That they're not pushing up prices. If prices go up, it's because of other people's reactions to America's laws. And that's what President Trump is doing. He is making sure that we're not picking and choosing winners and losers, that the law applies equally to everybody, American citizens. It applies to those who are here illegally and our world leaders across the country and across the world. They can help us. Or
our world leaders across the country?
In the Iraq.
Oh, she's just trying to get out of this.
And such as. And such as. I'm sorry.
You know, one good way to focus on America first is to stop all this bullshit about saying Africa is confiscating, or South Africa is confiscating white people's land, and maybe like pass healthcare or something.
I will concede.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, we know that America first doesn't actually mean, like, Americans first. Ladybug, welcome.
That I didn't realize just how stupid Kristi Noem is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like she was never asked a question that was sort of like so direct, but that is an impressive. I mean, you're head of the Department of Homeland Security. You may get a question if you go on the Sunday television about the tariffs that are starting in 2 days that are ostensibly, at least in terms of Mexico, about the border. Should remind you, all this stuff about fentanyl.
Oh, yeah.
Virtually no fentanyl gets in across the Canadian border. This is according to experts.
Michael Hasser, welcome. She dumb, though.
Number of fentanyl or just ODs in this country is down now at a number. I mean, any ODs are a problem, and largely, at least, the ODs we've been seeing over the past decade have been a function of getting people addicted to prescription painkillers and then them not having access to it. But the number of ODs in this country is down now to about 90,000 annually, which is lower than it's been in 10 years.
And that was a part of the Biden administration's efforts to essentially expand access to treatments for the opioid epidemic, including medication. They eliminated a waiver that expanded it to from 130,000 up to 1.8 million people for prescription medication to help with opioids, et cetera. I think they also lifted other, moratoriums on
I wonder how much Narcan,
overdose.
Yeah, like Narcan
for Narcan.
There's also a thing where when these sorts of things spread through populations, before we can realize what's going on, they kill a lot more people, and then society just generally has a slightly better understanding of it.
I will tell you, my daughter at college, they are very sensitive to this.
Yeah.
And I got them testing strips and stuff like that. But they're very sensitive to it. But
it's just a fear-mongering object for Republicans at this point.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
True. All right, folks, we're going to try to fly by on this one. Yeah, I think it's time, we start acting like how serious the situation is. Because let me tell you, I'm just speaking broadly, but let me tell you, like, it feels like a lot of people, a lot of normies, a lot of quote apolitical people just simply don't know how serious the situation is. I think it's time we start acting like it.
They say I can't run again. That's the expression. Sure. Then somebody said, I don't think you can. Oh.
Those were comments Donald Trump made at the National Prayer Breakfast, where he once again floated the idea of staying in power beyond what is allowed by the 22nd Amendment. So to say that he has no regard for the Constitution would be an understatement. He also tried to end birthright citizenship via executive order, which is codified in the 14th Amendment. He is considering sending incarcerated U.S. citizens to El Salvadoran prisons in direct violation of the 8th Amendment. He's sending immigrants to concentration camps as we speak in Gitmo to deprive them of their 5th Amendment rights, which everybody is entitled to, by the way, regardless of citizenship status. His Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is criminally investigating companies that have DEI initiatives, which is a brazen violation of the First Amendment. And he's reportedly drafting an executive order to abolish or dismantle, we don't know how far it's going to go, the Department of Education, which requires an act of Congress. Now, on top of that, he's letting Elon Musk illegally gain access to our government agencies, which now includes the NIH, the Department of Education, and probably more as I record this. He's also gained access to Medicaid and Medicare computers. He is trying to line item veto payments appropriated by Congress at the U.S. Treasury. And that's obviously illegal. But what's crazy, or not so crazy, depending on, what you know about politics, is that Republican senators have willingly ceded that power to Elon Musk despite its illegality. And as this Notice headline put it, Musk's actions may be unconstitutional.
Yeah, like maybe, no, I think they are. Without a doubt, they are. And like, so why bother even having like this Congress, right? Like, why bother even showing up? If you're a Republican congressperson, whether you're a senator or you're from the House, you're a representative, why bother even showing up at this point, right? Like, you've already decided that you've anointed this king. Why bother showing up?
But, quote, nobody should bellyache about that, Senator Thom Tillis said. Right. So in other words, this is a constitutional crisis. And nobody's acting like it. But even that doesn't sufficiently describe the danger of this moment. And I think that Jamelle Bouie put it best, writing for the New York Times, quote, to describe the current situation in the executive branch as merely a constitutional crisis is to understate the significance of what we're experiencing. Constitutional crisis does not even begin to capture the radicalism of what is unfolding in the federal bureaucracy and of what Congress's decision to not act may liquidate in terms of constitutional meaning.
Yeah, I think that's that's really it, right? Like, Congress is not doing its job, right? Congress is going along with it. Cognizant, welcome to the end stage capitalistic utopia. Suck it, ignoramuses. Oh man, unfortunately it means we all have to. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want any of this. But we collectively have decided to put the quarter in the jukebox so we all get to dance, whether we like the tune or not.
Together, Trump and Musk are trying to rewrite the rules of the American system. They are trying to instantiate an anti-constitutional theory of executive power that would make the president supreme over all other branches of government. If Trump, Musk, and their allies succeed, then the question of American politics won't be if they'll win the next election, but whether the Constitution as we know it is still in effect. And that's what we're contending with right now, in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, like, this goes also beyond Trump, because, like, if they're able to just kind of, if no one stops them, right? If no one forcibly stops them, then the next Republican, or who knows? Like I'm not sure. It's things are very unclear at the moment. But you know, who's to say that they're not going to try to already pass the torch from Trump, because obviously Trump's not, you know, Trump is old. Trump is not in the best of health, God willing, and it is quite possible, or it's in the realm of possibility that these people draft up a way that they can already pre-select the next king in the rotation.
Donald Trump is in the process of fundamentally transforming our entire system.
And no input from the public needed, by the way.
Of governance, and consolidating power so rapidly that there might not actually be any going back when it's all said and done. We're talking about an informal dictatorship or an explicitly illiberal system of governance, if not de facto regime change altogether. And it doesn't take long to dismantle democratic institutions. In a piece published in The Atlantic by historian Timothy Ryback, he describes how Hitler was able to do it in just 53 days. And the parallels between then and now are truly striking. But we're going to revisit that article in a bit. The point is that it's not too early to start having serious conversations about contingency plans if Trump chooses to go full Hitler. Senator Chris Murphy urged Democrats to act like democracy is weeks away from disintegrating, because it is. And given the speed with which Trump is moving, I'm afraid he could be right. And on a recent episode of Secular Talk, Kyle Kulinski encouraged Democrats to take some pretty extreme steps, admittedly, but they're necessary.
I really hope the Democrats are smart enough right now to be making alliances which might be necessary for the future. And what I mean by that...
well, let me stop you right there at Democrats being smart enough. But okay, I mean, you know, listen. It's all we've got at this point, all right? It's not looking great.
Is you got to get the National Guard on your side.
Yep.
You got to get police departments on your side.
Yep.
You got to try to peel away some generals from the Trump administration.
Yeah, by the way, like this is not drastic or exaggeration in any way, shape, or form, because there is no oversight. Like, I need to emphasize that there is no congressional oversight. Congress is not operating like it's supposed to as far as checks and balances go. Okay? The one body that's supposed to be acting in a situation like this is not acting. They are, since Congress is not acting, they're taking this to the courts. The courts are giving orders, right? And they're not following the court orders, okay? If there's no action from Congress, there's no action from the judiciary, then again, this can only go so many ways, and none of them are good. Yeah, Congress is a blank check, right? So yeah, exactly. So there's no Congress because it's effectively just going along with it and acting as a rubber stamp, correct? And they're just flat out ignoring judicial orders. So what's left? I mean,
because the fact of the matter is, what is stopping these guys?
Exactly. At this point, if nothing, it's going to stop these people from doing what they're doing, which is completely against the Constitution, which is completely against the law, circumventing our courts, right? I mean, Vance of the court saying shit, right? Exactly. So like they're not respecting the court orders, right? Or presumably they're going to ignore them. So I mean, again, this can only go so many ways, and none of them are good.
What's stopping Elon and what's stopping Trump from? The courts are going to say, and this isn't a maybe they'll say this, they are definitely going to say Elon's got to stop. They got to stop.
Right,
What-
which they did, by the way. The court has already ordered the Doge team to stop whatever, I know the damage is already done, but whatever access that these young Nazi Groyper type people have to the treasury, that stopped, or that the court has deemed it like that's it, that's enough. And they were ordered to destroy whatever data that they did have. We are, again, unsure if any of that has happened. We have Vance saying that that it's not the job of the judiciary, to tell how to tell how the president should run things, So I mean, again, what is there left to do? Well, the Constitution gives us one solution.
What's to stop them from Trump to come out and say, no, I disagree. I want to keep going. I'm the president. My word stands. That's beyond a constitutional crisis. That is literally just a fascist coup. That's what that is. Where it's like, hey, you can't do this. This is in brazen, flagrant contravention of the law. And they go, agree to disagree. What do you do then? What do you do then? If you are not making alliances with muscle right now, and all the muscle is on the side of Trump and Elon, then they literally get to do whatever they want. The law is whatever the fuck they say it is at that point.
Correct.
I mean, these are literally the conversations we have to start having.
And I totally agree with everything that we've already seen. It's not too early to start having that conversation. And I would rather over-prepare than be under-prepared. And the reason why Democrats should prepare for that scenario is because the judiciary, which is still a check on Trump to an extent at least, doesn't have a way to enforce their decisions. So while Congress won't hold him accountable, well, the judiciary might, but they don't have a police force, right? They simply interpret the Constitution and they say what is or isn't permissible. So if they say that Trump can't send U.S. citizens to El Salvador, for example, he can technically just do it anyway, and they'd have no way to enforce their decision. There's no way to stop him, essentially. They can't arrest him, and the Supreme Court already granted him near absolute immunity, so Trump could just threaten to ignore the Constitution and then ignore the Constitution, and absolutely nothing could be done about it. And we're clearly building towards that moment. And Republicans also know that it's getting to that point because they're feeling pressure to let us know that this isn't what it looks like. For example, Senator Mike Lee asked, name a fascist dictator whose agenda entailed limiting the size, cost, and power of government. I can name one. Hitler. The Adolf Hitler. And
right, like, what do you think he's doing by minimizing government? And, do you think he's just like doing it for no reason? No, this is all being concentrated. The reason why those people are being let go, the reason why the bureaucracy is being dismantled is so that it can be concentrated. Either your bureaucracy is going to be filled with a bunch of yes men, or they just disappear. That department is no longer necessary.
And one of the more popular replies to that by SDL pointed out this excerpt from Jerma Bell, who explained how the Nazis pursued privatization to win over support from big industries and business leaders.
The gray area between hacker-hunter is not as gray as it used to be.
In other words, they outsourced public services to private industries. And that is exactly what Trump is doing. In fact, he already won over the business industry, right? I mean, the oligarchs showed up to his inauguration, the richest people in the world, with an estimated net worth of nearly $1 trillion, were sitting shoulder to shoulder at his inauguration. And this notion that Trump is limiting the size of government because of some ideological commitment to anarcho-capitalism or something is bullshit. And Mike Lee knows it's bullshit. Trump is specifically hollowing out the administrative state in order to consolidate his own power and eliminate checks and balances.
Right,
That's
which
the
he's
extent
doing.
to which he's committed to shrinking government. He wants the government to be so small that he is effectively the government. And he has the first and last say on everything because he is a fascist who aspires to be a dictator. And Mike Lee knows it, which is why he felt like he needed to address that. Because It is exactly what it looks like. And it's easy to be alarmed by the most blatant things that he's doing that's driving the constitutional crisis that we're in. But him and his cronies are also making other more subtle changes that are either dubious in their illegality, disastrous, or just straight up Hitlerian, literally. Case in point.
The governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, basically admitted that he knew somebody that didn't have full documentation, that he was hiding over his garage.
Hey, look, it's Himmler. Heinrich Himmler.
Then we have Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, saying that people should have the right to sue.
So, okay, so if this guy's going to be Heinrich Himmler, who is Sean Hannity? Who is like the minister of truth? Who is Miniature in Nazi Germany? Head of propaganda. Goebbels. Okay, all right, Goebbels. All right, so we have Goebbels and Himmler talking. All right, got it.
Sanctuary cities and states that aid and abet in law breaking. Your comment on all of that?
Well, I think the government's pretty foolish saying what he said, because I got note of it, won't let it go, we'll look into it. And if he's knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien, that's a violation of Title 8 United States Code 1324. I would seek prosecution, or the Secretary would seek prosecution.
Just to be clear, Tom Homan, Donald Trump's border czar, is threatening to prosecute and arrest a governor for harboring and concealing immigrants. I mean, the Hitler particles are through the roof. This is straight up Nazi shit. And on that note, look at what one of Trump's State Department...
Yeah, so just to be clear, like, yeah, at this point, like, there is no doubt about how, about what we're dealing with. Like, ICE is basically the new Gestapo. This guy here, the head of ICE, is the modern Heinrich Himmler. Yeah, it's not good. It's not great.
Appointees tweeted back in October, quote, "Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work." Yeah. And to make matters worse, Trump is literally in the process of making that a reality right now. He rescinded an executive order signed by Lyndon Johnson in the civil rights era. He recently forced NASA to purge any mention of women in leadership from their websites. So, I mean, he is in the process of making sure white men are the ones in charge, as if they already weren't. Look at the makeup of Congress. But to be crystal clear, when he says competent white man, it's redundant to them because it's assumed that they're automatically competent due to their whiteness. And just to go back to Pam Bondi's criminal...
I mean, that's just virtue signaling, right? To pretend to have some veil of... It's just like a false like thing because it is kind of redundant in the way they believe. But yeah, like it's just to like virtue signal to some kind of to the people who think that this is about like meritocracy and DEI programs took away the meritocracy, right? Like it's just a little virtue signal to them.
Investigation of companies with DEI, Gabrielle Perry put into perspective what that could actually look like in practice. Quote, "This is the return of Jim Crow. My mentor at work texted me before I could even process the news myself. My boss keeps saying to be calm. I can't believe anyone would think this is not going to lead to companies not hiring marginalized people and women." That's exactly it. They are trying to discourage companies from diversifying their workforces under the pretense of...
Yeah, and they will. By the way, the companies don't care. Companies don't have any actual fixed morals or positions. Except one, whatever raises the stock price. You know, whatever keeps the board, the shareholders happy. Whatever prevents them from being persecuted by the government. And being fined and harassed by government investigations. If that means, you know, you're not going to hire women anymore, then so be it. You know. Mouselander, welcome. Join the YouTubes. Indeed.
Eliminating DEI. So we are getting a much better sense of what Trump meant when he said he wanted to make America great again. You know, people often responded by asking, well, when was America great? And what era do you specifically want to return to? And the answer apparently is somewhere between the 1930s and before the Civil Rights Movement. And speaking of going back in time, the CDC's contraception page has officially gone dark, which may be an ominous sign of what's to come. And I say that because almost everything Trump is doing was outlined in Project 2025. And Brendan Carr, who is an author of Project 2025 that Trump appointed as FCC chair, outlined what he's doing to crack down on critics of Donald Trump, which is something that was, again, outlined in Project 2025.
You know, look, there's a lot of people in this country right now on the radical left that are upset about this investigation into CBS and the work that I'm doing on broadcasters. And sort of paraphrase Thomas Sowell, when the government has been weaponized in your favor, it feels like discrimination when all of a sudden there's even-handed treatment.
I've got to say, him using a Thomas Sowell quote in that context is genuinely disgusting, because he's referring to his agency's frivolous investigation into 60 Minutes because they did an interview with Kamala Harris and edited it down. And he claims that the agency was weaponized against Fox News, therefore it's justified for them to do the same since the precedent was already set by the last chair of the FCC, except he's not telling you that Fox News was punished for breaking the law by platforming defamatory claims about the 2020 election being stolen, whereas 60 Minutes cut out portions of Kamala's interview to save time, which is a very common practice in all of media. But this is what they do. They lie about something that's happening, or they exaggerate to give them...
We're going back to 1955, you know, the good old days, right? Yeah.
...a justification to later do it themselves. Conservatives were being censored on social media. Well, look at that. All of a sudden, now there's mass censorship, albeit on the left. Well, the election was rigged by Democrats. Well, I guess that means we have to engage in voter suppression in order to stop their rigging. But I mean, with respect to the FCC, the goal is to send a message to every single media company in the country that if you criticize Donald Trump, we will come after you. It's explicitly authoritarian and has a chilling effect on free speech. But that's the point. A wannabe dictator's consolidation of power necessitates a crackdown on political opponents.
Yeah, honestly, like, fuck Donald Trump, okay? How about that for my criticism?
It is what Hitler did, albeit to a much more severe extent, but nonetheless, Trump is doing that. This is the beginning. And on the subject of Hitler...
The Lugenpress.
Terrible segue, I know, but on that subject, I do want to circle back to that piece from The Atlantic, because when you look at the similarities between then and now, it really puts into perspective how dire the situation is. Here's some key similarities. Quote, Hitler believed that an empowering law was crucial to his political survival, but passing such a law, which would dismantle the separation of powers, grant Hitler's executive branch the authority to make laws without parliamentary approval, and allow Hitler to rule by decree, bypassing democratic institutions and the Constitution, required the support of a 2/3 majority in the fractious Reichstag.
Yeah, so I mean, like, if you took out, like, if you took out, like, the references to Hitler and just put, like, Trump and the Republican Party, this is, like, basically, like, a 1-to-1. Saul was a black economist who wouldn't appreciate being used by fascists. The unitary executive theory was crucial to Trump's political survival, but passing such a law, which would dismantle the separation of powers between Congress, the judiciary, and the executive, would grant Trump's executive branch the authority to make executive orders without congressional approval and allow Trump to rule by executive order, bypassing democratic institutions and the Constitution, which required the support of a 2/3 majority in Congress. I mean, like, does that, like, see, it's like a 1-to-1, folks.
But that agenda was thwarted, so in a meeting with cabinet officials, the following happened. Hitler opened the meeting by boasting that millions of Germans had welcomed his chancellorship with jubilation, then outlined his plans for expunging key government officials and filling their positions with loyalists. Sound familiar? Trump also talks about having a mandate, and he's doing that. At this point, he turned to his main agenda item, the empowering law that he argued would give him the time, 4 years according to the stipulations laid out in the draft of the law, and the authority necessary necessary to make good on his campaign promises to revive the economy, reduce unemployment, increase military spending, withdraw from international treaty obligations, sound familiar, purge the country of foreigners, sound familiar, he claimed were, quote, poisoning the blood of the nation, and exact revenge on political opponents. Heads will roll in the sand, Hitler had vowed at one
Yeah, I mean, like, that's literally just like 1-to-1. I mean, it's actually astonishing and shocking. Just how 1-to-1 this is.
Moving on, he wanted to purge communists from government, but he worried about whether or not they would launch a national strike that would cripple the economy, to which he, quote, wondered whether the army could be used to crush any public unrest. But it was ultimately dismissed by his defense minister because he couldn't imagine a situation where Hitler would be able to direct the German military to shoot down protesters in the streets. Hitler had campaigned on the promise of draining the parliamentarian swamp, only to find himself now floundering in a quagmire of partisan politics and banging up against constitutional guardrails. He responded as he invariably did when confronted with dissenting opinions or inconvenient truths. He ignored them and doubled down. Now,
yeah, I mean, like, that's actually, like, wild that he even had the same, like, drain the swamp kind of talking point.
That's where we're going to stop, but I will link you to the full story down below if you want to find out what happens next. But spoiler alert, Hitler did end up breaking democracy entirely fairly quickly, and then he went on to do a Holocaust. And where we stopped reading is about where we're at now in history, just in our own version of that story, where Trump is in the process of dismantling the administrative state and purging government of anyone who isn't loyal to him. Also, Hitler, like Trump, wanted to conduct mass deportations, and Hitler said that Jewish immigrants were poisoning the blood of the nation, and Trump quoted Hitler on the campaign trail and said that same thing verbatim. Hitler, like Trump, couldn't do everything that he wanted to do right away because of democratic checks and balances, so to get around that, he systematically dismantled them and characterized that effort as draining the parliamentarian swamp. Sound familiar? Hitler also went after political opponents. Trump wants to do the same. I mean, Trump talked about wanting to crush dissent using the military. He talked about going after the enemy within on the campaign trail. And as you saw from that article,
right, and like the same response was from the military leaders, like, no, you can't really do that. But yeah, I mean, like, it's as if Trump, you know, I might give Trump too much credit here by assuming that he read, but it's almost like Trump read up on like what Hitler's playbook was and decided that that's what he was going to copy.
Wanted to do the same thing. Trump's defense secretary, unlike Hitler's, who was just confirmed, by the way, wouldn't say whether or not he'd order the military to go after U.S. citizens if Trump asked him to. So the parallels are very chilling, and this is a really dangerous moment. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump will definitely go as far as Hitler did, but what I am saying is that we should treat this moment as if he will, because we can't afford not to. So no, you're not being hysterical by thinking about this. Don't let the fascists gaslight you into thinking that this is all normal, because it's not normal. And they know that it's not normal, hence why they're trying to convince us that it's not what it looks like. That's why Mike Lee made that tweet, because it looks really bad, because it is.
Right, like, yeah, like, we're not gonna sit here and wait until the fucking camps start popping, like, until like the gas chambers start, right, to be like, oh yeah, like, this is Nazism. I'm like, no, man, you stop that now. I like his tats. Who's I think he's talking about Mike Figueroa's sleeve. I bought some guns yesterday, gotta be ready. The only book he had is a nightstand copy of Hitler's speeches. I mean, like, that, yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
You're not being unreasonable. In fact, it's unreasonable for your hair to not be on fire in this moment because it's bad. We are in the process of transitioning into an autocracy, and we don't know where we're ultimately going to end up. Maybe we land on illiberalism, or end up in a soft dictatorship, or we go full-blown totalitarian. We don't know, but it's clear we're sliding further and further along that scale, and we'd be foolish to not prepare for the absolute worst.
Yeah, and stop that shit now. My grandpa redacted a bunch of redacted. I like my grandpa. Musk to rehire Treasury quote Treasury Doge staffer behind racist posts after Trump endorses idea. Yeah, so like this is kind of just piggybacking off all of this what we were talking about. Elon Musk said Friday that he will rehire a Doge staffer who resigned from the Treasury Department post after the exposure of his tweets advocating for racism and eugenics. Musk's announcement on his social media platform on Twitter after Vice President J.D. Vance urged Musk to hire the staffer back, and President Trump endorsed the view. So, yeah, I mean, like, this is what President Trump is endorsing. Quote, he will be brought back, said Musk, the head of Doge, wrote on Twitter in response to Vance's recommendation. Quote, to err is human, to forgive divine. Jesus Christ. And this is in response to Vance's tweet. I obviously disagree with some of Elez's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. Yeah, I mean, like, when it's just straight up racism and Nazi shit, then, like, yeah, I think it should. Okay? You know what? Fuck it. I think it should. I think it should. I was a kid. Okay? I was young. And I did a lot of ill-advised things, okay? We all did. We all make a lot of mistakes. But none of them involved me being a straight-up, like, Nazi, okay? Like, that's just, like, not a thing that occurred to me, okay? So, you know what? I'm actually quite frankly okay with ruining this dude's life over being a Nazi. I'm completely fine with that. He should never be hired anywhere. In a normal and just and rational world, he would be a pariah for the rest of his life. Until he stops doing Nazi shit. But instead, he gets rewarded by getting his job back. Less than an hour earlier, Trump was asked about the post of the 25-year-old former staffer, Marco Elez, and Vance's opinion that he should be brought back to Doge. Well, I don't know about the particular thing, Trump said. Whatever, dude. But if the vice president said that, did you say that? I'm with the vice president. So, yeah, just straight up endorsing him. Elez resigned Thursday after the Wall Street Journal asked the White House about Elez's connection to a Twitter account which made the inflammatory tweets. On Friday morning, Musk launched a poll on Twitter asking users whether Elez should be rehired to the so-called Doge. Vance replied to the poll saying Elez should rejoin Doge. Here's my view. I obviously disagree with some of Elez's posts. I don't think it's stupid social media activity should ruin the kid's life. I think so. We shouldn't reward journalists who try to destroy people by saying the truth, by just reporting the truth. Like, this is some, like, 1984 shit. If he's a bad dude or a terrible member of the team, fire him for that. Well, he is a bad dude. What are you talking about? Like, you think Nazis are good? I don't understand. Later Friday, Vance defended his view in a bitter exchange with Representative Ro Khanna over one of the posts from the account linked to Elez. Are you going to tell him to apologize for anything? For saying normalize Indian hate before this rehire? said, Kana, who's Indian American, asked Vance on Twitter, just asking for the sake of both of our kids. Like, seriously, man. Vance is married to an Indian woman. Vance, whose wife is also Indian American, shot back that Kana should, quote, grow up. Racist trolls on the internet, while offensive, don't threaten my kids. You know what does? A culture that denies grace to people who make mistakes. This isn't a mistake, bro. Like, he's being rewarded for being a Nazi piece of shit. A culture that encourages congressmen to act like whiny children. Vance added in another post, you disgust me. Whatever, dude. That was one of the group of young adults on Doge, which has been tasked with Trump by Trump with cutting federal spending and reducing the U.S. government workforce. Trump has purged Democratic commissioners out of the NLRB and Equal Opportunity and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission since taking office, as well as Department of Justice and FBI staff. The account linked to Ela's tweet in September, you could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity. The same month, the account tweeted, normalize Indian hate, referring to a post noting the prevalence of people from India in Silicon Valley. Those posts came after Vance had been nominated as Trump's running mate. Cool. I mean, is there no level like these people won't sing to? It's actually impressive. Vance is married to Usha Vance, who's the first Indian American and first Hindu to be Second Lady of the United States. Vance is also Scotch-Irish descent. Last summer, the same account retweeted, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. Weeks before that, it posted, I would not mind at all if Gaza and Israel both wiped off the face of the earth. Yeah, like, this is just Nazi shit. Like, this dude's a fucking Nazi. Elon is trying to buy OpenAI. I hope he doesn't get it. And of course, like, if Elon puts up a post, all his sycophants are going to reply to it. On Thursday, before he quit, Elez and another Doge staffer who were designated as, quote, special government employees were approved by a federal judge to have access to the payments system of U.S. Treasury. The judge restricted their ability to share data from that highly sensitive system with other people. Elez previously worked for X and another Musk company, SpaceX. Treasury Secretary Bessent told Bloomberg News Service Thursday that he personally had vetted one of the two Treasury employees from Musk's Doge team. It's not clear if that person was Elez, who resigned after Bessent gave him his interview. Oh, well, thank goodness. Thank goodness he was on the case. These are highly trained professionals. There's not some roving band running around doing things. The highly trained professional, 25-year-old racist piece of shit. And the youngest being, 19, fresh out of high school? Or I guess a year out of high school? Highly trained professionals. Got it. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, in an interview Friday with CNBC's Brian Sullivan, spoke about Doge employees being deployed to his department. The government is old and maybe a bit stodgy, Wright said. We've got some young kids, think young gun management consultants, coming in to take a critical look at how things run. I've heard these rumors. They're like seeing our nuclear secrets. None of that's true. They don't have security clearances. Okay, but nobody's saying they're getting into nuclear secrets, right? To our knowledge. The problem is they're in the Treasury Department, touching very sensitive systems that they, frankly, do not have the security clearance or should not have the security clearance to touch. CNN previously reported that a Doge staffer was given access to the Energy Department's IT system. Democratic senator open to government shutdown as protests if Trump moves. Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey said on yesterday, that he's open to joining Democrats in shutting the government down to protest the Trump administration's upheaval, federal agencies, and funding. Kim joins other Democrats concerned about helping Republicans push through federal funding ahead of March 14th deadline, while Trump administration looks to cut back some federal agencies and block federal funds. In the letter to House Democrats, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries vowed to use the deadline as leverage to block Trump from halting or diverting congressionally approved funds. Speaker Mike Johnson on Fridays told reporters on Friday that Jeffries appeared to be trying to set up some sort of government shutdown, a claim Jeffries pushed back on. Kim said on Sunday, NBC News Meet the Press, that he won't support efforts that will continue this lawlessness that we are seeing when it comes to this administration's actions, adding, for us to be able to support government funding, only for them to turn it around and dismantle the government, that is not something that should be allowed. If the government does shut down, this is on them. They are the majority. He said he is the last person who would want to see a government shutdown occur, but contended the country is on the cusp of a constitutional crisis. It is. And you know what? Not a single vote for these people. There's no point in trying to work with fascists. Okay? There is zero point in trying to work with fascists. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work. Okay. Democrats have protested a Trump administration sledgehammer to the federal agencies in several ways, from an overnight filibuster to multiple rallies in front of the agencies Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has looked into. Democrats' offices have been flooded with calls from constituents demanding the party, which holds a minority in both chambers, to do more to push back against the Trump administration. Democrats unleashed a flurry of public acts of resistance in recent days via impassioned speeches, letters, and proposed legislation. Yeah, I think we're going to need a little bit more than that. A little bit more. The federal funding deadline may be the next opportunity for Democrats in fighting against Trump's attempt to freeze funds and slash federal agencies, given the narrow majority the GOP holds in both the House and the Senate. Centrist Dems, who traditionally may have been opposed to using a government shutdown for leverage, have signaled they could get behind the charge. Republicans, have for the last 2 years needed a Democratic vote for every single continuing resolution, and they should not count on that this time around. Well, we'll see how that pans out. Yeah, it's like ferrying a scorpion across the river. Yeah, exactly. There is zero upside to reaching across the aisle. Not in these times, folks. Not in these times. Vance and Musk attack judicial authority as Trump's agenda gets pushback from the courts. Top Trump administration officials are openly questioning the judiciary's authority to serve as a check on executive power, as the new president's sweeping agenda faces growing pushback from the courts. Over the past 24 hours, officials ranging from billionaire Elon Musk to Vice President Vance have not only criticized federal judge's decision early Saturday that blocks Musk's Doge from accessing Treasury Department records, but also have attacked the legitimacy of judicial oversight, a fundamental pillar of American democracy, which is based on the separation of powers. Quote, if a judge tries to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tries to command the attorney general on how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. That's the problem, though. This isn't the executive's legitimate power. It's bullshit. This is incredibly dangerous. The fact that he's trying to say that, this is a straw man. This has nothing to do with anything. The fact is, the judiciary is there as a check. The whole point is that Congress, the judiciary, and the executive are co-equal branches of government, and each has the ability to have checks and balances on each other. That's how this works. And it's incredibly dangerous that you have the vice president saying that the judiciary isn't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Yes, it does. If the executive branch is going rogue and making unconstitutional executive orders, it is literally the job of the judiciary to strike down those orders. You fight them in court, and if the judiciary says you can't do this, this is unconstitutional, like, yeah, that's literally the whole reason why you have the judiciary. Let me try to remember. 3 branches of government. Yep. Ironically, he has minority stake in OpenAI. A corrupt judge protecting corruption. He needs to be impeached now, said Elon Musk, who was tasked by President Trump to root out waste across the federal government. So here we have unelected billionaire suggesting that he should, that judge should be impeached. Musk also shared a post from a user who had suggested that the Trump administration openly defy this order. I don't like precedent it sets when you defy a judicial ruling, but I'm just wondering what other options are these judges leaving us. The court order against Musk barred his team temporarily from accessing a treasury system that contains sensitive personal data, such as social security and bank account numbers for millions of Americans. Musk and his team say they're simply looting. Freudian slip. Rooting through the government systems to identify waste and abuse at the direction of the Republican president. It doesn't matter. That authority is not his. The Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, called the ruling an assault on the very idea of democracy itself. Like, that's how you know that this is fucked, right? When you have Stephen Miller going out there and saying that the way the checks and balances work is actually like this 1984 type deal where he's telling you that the way actually the democratic system is supposed to work is actually the assault, is actually the very idea of this is an assault on the very idea of democracy itself. Like, this is some 1984 up is down, down is up, war is peace, freedom is slavery type deal. Quote, what we continue to see here is the idea that, quote, rogue bureaucrats, who are elected by no one, who answer to no one, who have lifetime tenure jobs, who we told could never be fired, which of course is not true, that the power has been cemented and accumulated for years, whether it be with the Treasury bureaucrats or the FBI bureaucrats or CIA bureaucrats or the USAID bureaucrats, with this unelected shadow force that is running our government and running our country. This is all babble. Because I have no idea what any of this means. Musk has insane conflict of interest in his data, especially when approximately 30% of his whole contract grants and funding comes from the U.S. government. He's brute forcing, basically controlling the force of government to get ahead in data mining contracts for U.S. government. Yeah, I mean, like, apart from the very obvious issues with having like such access to sensitive systems, which present the opportunity for these systems to be, quote, breached. This is just massively bad on so many levels, and that's just like one of them. This whole treasury bullshit is to control this. He also contracted outside developers to oversee those quote kids. Yeah. Yep. The pushback comes as the administration's efforts to dismantle government agencies and limit large swaths of federal workforce are being held up by the courts. Judge have also have blocked Trump, at least temporarily, from moving forward with the mass federal buyouts, from placing thousands of USAID workers on leave, and from implementing an executive order that seeks to end birthright citizenship. Early Saturday, U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmayer issued a preliminary injunction after 19 Democratic attorney generals sued, alleging the Trump administration allowed Musk access to Treasury Department's central payment system in violation of federal law. We're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling. We have a long way to go, said Trump. No judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of decision. Red flag? What do you mean? What do you mean, bro? Like, whatever. This is exhaustingly scary. Only hope is that the courts hold. If they will, you don't know. Yeah, and that's kind of the issue, right? Because they're openly saying that, like, we don't care. They're openly saying, like, yeah, the courts are saying that we can't do this, but, like, so what? Stop us, right? A payment system that handles tax refunds, social security benefits, veterans benefits, and much more, sending out trillions of dollars every year while containing an expansive network of Americans' personal and financial data. A hearing is set for February 14th. Democrats have been sounding alarms over Trump's and Musk's efforts, including efforts halting spending that have already been appropriated by Congress. Under the Constitution, Congress is the body of spending, i.e. the power of the purse. I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced, certainly since Watergate, said Senator Chris Murphy. By the way, an absolute, I actually, you know, I don't know if, but recently, I should say, recently, Senator Chris Murphy has been on fire, to say the least. There's little chance of him abolishing that. Department of Education can only be severely defunded, not abolished either. He would need huge congressional approval for either of those, and he does not have that. Right, but like, as far as like the Department of Education, because I don't know, like the thing is, like, he doesn't care about the Constitution, and while you're correct that on paper he can't just do this because he needs congressional approval, like I don't think he cares, to be honest. He's trucking away at work at how he can and in the areas that he can. My hope is that you're right, but I'm just uncertain if that makes sense. But this shit is straight up looting the treasury. Yep, I disagree. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you. Department of Education will affect funding. Around 35% of public schools funding come from the federal government, so it will just seriously damage the education system. Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like, I'm concerned about, like, how. Yeah, you're right. I'm just concerned that he doesn't care, and they're just running roughshod through just everything, regardless of whether or not it's within the Constitution or within law or not. Murphy expressed the concern that the courts are ill-prepared for the onslaught that they're facing. The pace of this assault on the Constitution in order to serve the billionaire class is absolutely dizzying, so you have to run a full-scale opposition. Ultimately, you've got to bring the American public into this conversation because we need the Republican colleagues in the House and in the Senate ultimately to put a stop to this. You cannot rely on the court system. I agree. So I'm saying it's just one of those shitty things that are in serious jeopardy, including this story. Yep. Quote, I assume we will argue this in court like the other 17 or 18 decisions we have in the several days. That's all going to get argued in court. And frankly, we knew the left, we knew the Democrats are going to do this. The Republicans said on CNN's Inside Politics. I mean, like, man, at this point, like, there's no, I think that at this point, like, not that they're going to do it because I don't trust the media apparatus to actually do this, but, like, stop having Republicans on, okay? Stop making this seem like it's not as serious as it is, because it really is serious. They are right. We need Republicans on this, otherwise it's not going to be pretty. Right, but like, they have to be the ones to put a stop to this because they're the majority, but they're not wanting to. That's the problem, right? Like, they're the ones in control of Congress. They're knocking down motions to subpoena Elon Musk to answer what he's doing in the Treasury. Like, they're the ones that, ostensibly, as being the party that's in control of Congress, which is the one mechanism that could instantly put a stop to this completely, by impeaching and removing him immediately. The problem here is that they're not doing it. Yes, the Republicans some are going to have to, but it's a matter of not doing it, and that's what's scary about this. It's also uncertain. It's like It's like a black hole. It's also uncertain. We'll see where's the Republican limit to Trump's whims. I think that is as far as the base allows it, right? Because ultimately, it's Trump controlling the base, which ultimately controls the party. So it's up to that, really, because if the base changes its mind, then yeah, or if Republicans are able to defy the base without any political fallback, then yeah. Even the base wasn't happy about invading Greenland. I looked up some conservative online forums, and they aren't happy about it. I hope they hope he's just doing 4D chess. Oof, that's not very assuring, to be honest. That doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence, but yeah. We'll see where people get pissed. I mean, like, if Trump screws up the government so bad, if Trump and Elon screws the government up so bad that people, like, let's say, don't get their tax refunds for like months, okay, because of how bad, you know, the situation is, where he's gutted and destroyed the apparatus that does this, and people don't get their tax returns. People are suffering from inflation that he is directly doing, directly having a hand on. I don't know, man. Maybe. I just don't know. The only hope is he screws up so bad and his administration is such an uncoordinated mess that will weaken his position in courts and Congress. You know, that's all we can hope for as far as how this is going to go down. He barely coordinates with his press secretary, even. Scary stuff. Yeah, the two different statements on Gaza. I remember that. Little Marco was saying something, and Trump was saying, no, I do want to build that resort. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, folks, we got one more, because just to tie that whole like conversation up neatly, as I was trying to make the argument, well, also just kind of piggybacking off the Humanist Report video. Judge finds Trump's administration violated court order halting the funding freeze. So, like, we know that he's violating court orders. Now what? A federal judge in Rhode Island on Monday today said the Trump administration had violated his orders, halting a sweeping federal funding freeze, and ordered the government to immediately restore funding. U.S. District Judge McConnell handed down the order after the plaintiffs in the case, a coalition of 22 states, said the government had not restored funding in several programs despite the January 31st order, temporarily halting wide-range office management and budget directives that caused chaos and confusion across the country. The states have presented evidence in this motion that the defendants in some cases have continued to improperly freeze federal funds and refuse to resume disbursement of appropriated federal funds, McConnell wrote, even though this order lifting the freeze had been clear and unambiguous. I mean, like, not the first time and not the last. Yeah, so, like, at this point, like, he's openly defying federal orders, federal judge orders. So, now what? Like, there's no checks with Congress. There's no checks with the judiciary because he's just wiping his, he's wiping his ass with that. And at this point, like, he's got to be removed by force if nothing else is working. The appropriation of funds that had been voted on cannot be frozen by the president. First and foremost, is congressional decision. He has no right to do that. Correct. But he did, and the courts told him no, and he has not yet complied. That's what I'm getting at. Like, you're right. He has absolutely no authority. We talked about this just earlier. He has no right to do this. He has no authority to do this. Congress has the power of the purse, and he's just circumventing it. The judiciary has told him he can't do this, and he's still defying that order. I'm expecting impeachment articles for the third time. That is impeachable. Yeah, but I mean, as who's doing it, right? That's Congress's job. Who's going to bring up impeachment articles, right? Because when Democrats try to do so, Republicans hold the House. They're the ones that set the tone. They just table it, and that's the end of that story. So that's my point. There's no checks, no balances. Nothing's happening here. So the only avenues that are being left here are not pretty. The only avenues that are being left here, as Kyle Kulinski was talking about, are not pretty. Like it's not great. The situation's not great. They will, but it won't really do much. They should at least try to put forward the impeachment. Well, as far as Congress goes, yeah, I mean, I think so. But in any case, the defendants now plead that they're just trying to root out fraud, but the freezes are in effect now as a result of a broad categorical order, not a specific finding of possible fraud. The broad categorical and sweeping freeze of federal funds is, as the court found, likely unconstitutional and has caused and continues to cause irreparable harm to a vast portion of the country. He said in pauses in funding violate the plain text of the temporary restraining order he had issued on January 31st and ordered that funding to be immediately restored for the duration of the time this temporary restraining order is in effect. That order is expected to remain in place until at least a hearing on a preliminary injunction later this month. In its filing last week, asking the judge to take action, the coalition argued jobs, lives, and the social fabric of life in the plaintiff states are at risk from disruptions and uncertainty that have continued now a full week after the entry of the order. The Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The OMB memo, which was later rescinded, directed federal agencies to temporarily pause all activities related to obligation or disbursement of all federal financial assistance and other relevant agency activities that may be implicated by Trump's executive orders, including but not limited to financial assistance for foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, quote, woke gender ideology, no clue what that is, and the Green New Deal, a thing that is literally never happened. Like, that literally never happened. I don't know what he's talking about. There's no such thing as a Green New Deal. It's not a thing. In his ruling last month, McConnell found those directives appeared to fall outside the scope of the president's authority. The executive actions unilaterally suspended payments of federal funds to the states and others simply by choosing to do so, no matter the authorizing or appropriating statute, the regulatory regime, or the terms of the grant itself. The executive cites no legal authority to do, allowing it to do so. Indeed, no federal law would authorize the executive's unilateral action here. Federal law specifies how the executive should act if it believes the appropriations are inconsistent with the president's priorities. It must ask Congress, not act unilaterally. Are there some aspects of the pause that might be legal and appropriate constitutionally for the executive to take? The court imagines there are, but it is equally sure that there are many instances of the executive order's wide-ranging, all-encompassing, and ambiguous pause of critical funding that are not, the ruling said. The U.S. is one of the biggest distributors of foreign aid relative to GDP. Freezing that shit is crazy, but it is what it is. Yeah, well, I mean, it's really, really bad, right? Like, this isn't just about freezing, quote, foreign aid, right? Like, this is like that. It's so massive, like the way this works. Just as an example, like the USAID stuff, like you're literally screwing American people. That these are American jobs that you're screwing, American farmers, that you're screwing who grow this. Oops, kitty, who grow this. who grow this food for USAID. They're screwed. Some people expect even medication in desperate places in the world. Yep. Okay, Kat. Alright, you're gonna help me sign off. Folks, I have Vaquita the cat here with me today. She's gonna help me sign off. Okay. Jules117, thank you for the follow. Welcome. She's going to help me sign off. If you enjoy the content, folks, okay, and you want to show some love to the cat, hit the follow button, okay? Hit the follow button if you haven't done so already. If you're on the YouTube, keep liking that stream and subscribe, okay? Subscribe for the cat. All right, don't do it for me. Just subscribe for the kitty. Join the Discord, folks, okay? Join the Discord. It's completely free. It's a perfect way to stay up to date with the channel. Kitty, yes. So subscribe to the YouTubes. Join the Discord, folks. Subscribe to the Substack, okay? New article, most likely showing up soon. And if you want to support the channel directly, hit up that merch store and you can tip the channel directly. Thank you all. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Thank you, and welcome to the new follows. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Spread the word, folks. All right, help spread the word. We'll be here Monday through Thursday around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Also, quick thank you to Michael Hasser for modding the chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ground level news. Hang tight, folks. All right, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.